It's time for Silverstone. I'll try to give you a quick rundown on a video and then give you a slower frame-by-frame following this. It's a great track. It's been around F1 for a long time in some form or another. So the goal of this first section is to be wide open throttle around this right-hand bend, and you may have to work at doing that, downforce and whatnot, just as little bit of a lift as possible. Brake at the curbing. Nice late turn. Keep the car on the right half of the track. I kind of went a little too far over there. And this is just a understeer corner, wait on the car to rotate, and make sure you put down the throttle later if you have to wide open throttle to make sure that when you go to wide open throttle, you stay wide open throttle. Don't lift going around that last bend onto the straightaway. Drive deep in here. Drive in deeper than you think you can, almost overdrive it, and then late turn. This corner, you can either do a tight wrap it around on the curb like I did there, or you can diamond it off a little bit. The next turn's a little bit like turn one. It's very fast, and you want to find a way to get through it wide open throttle. Do a light lift early if you have to kind of set the car up. This is a practice sim with light fuel. I didn't need to. The next section as well, it's nearly wide open throttle the whole way. Use some curb. You may need to lift a little bit to go around this left-hander, and then a hard brake around the right-hander. Not as hard as you may think, though, to get around what I believe they call a chapel turn. Going down a straightaway, take a breath. And we're looking for a curb on the left where we will slightly brake and turn. And stay on this right-hand curb a little longer than you think you need to, otherwise you'll run out of limits on the outside. Quickly to the 100, brake, turn left, stay left half a track. Quick to the right, and this is a lot like the turn leading to the straightaway earlier where you need to apply throttle a little later, get to wide open throttle, and stay there.
All right, let's go for a turn-by-turn of Great Britain here at Silverstone. The first couple of turns are going to be taken at wide open throttle or as darn near close to it as you can. If you're on like a heavy fuel load though, or on like hard compound tires or a low downforce setup at the beginning of a race, this will likely be a slight lift for you. So between the 50 and the end of the curb is where you want to turn. And the curbs here at Silverstone are overall very friendly. So get your two to right side tires on this black and white. Just beware of turning too early and abusing track limits. They will get you here for that. I am running this on strict, by the way, for this particular lap. So you want to make sure you stay wide open throttle and aim to come out to about the middle of the track between this next section. All the while, remember, staying wide open throttle. And this time, you aim to stay wide open throttle and try to keep the car as tight as you can to this curb as it wraps around. But the goal is that you're going to aim for the left-hand side of the track, but be on the gas so hard that the car can't stay there, and the car is going to want to step out on you. And in the next frame, you're going to see what I mean by that. So your car may even end up as far out as the middle of the track. But all you really want to do is make sure that you're able to bring it back in and get it nice and straight along this verge line and along this curb. And my brake marker, no matter what tires or what arrow I'm running, seems to be right about the beginning of that curb. And then you're going to stay straight and turn about just past that next, the last Pirelli signboard. Red curbs are basically bad at Silverstone. Aim to put two tires on this inside curb and then track out about halfway across the track on exit. And what will happen is you'll see there's like an opening back here. It's not pictured just because I had to cut this down a little bit. But as you start drawing level with this left-hand curb, you're going to want to brake, ironically aiming at the outer edge of the track, and then about a second after you start braking, once you're able to get it down to about third gear, you're going to make a left turn and try to get to this left-hand curb, and there again, two tires on the black and whites, none on the red. And you're going to have to be patient here. Everything so far has been about really fast and then a really quick, decisive turn. And right here, it's like suddenly you have to wait on the car to turn. And I would advise you take a look at the track map. Look how sharp this turn is. This is basically another infamous F1 hairpin turn. It's very fine to use the curbs halfway out. Now here I need to talk about something philosophically about driving that this turn and the ultimate turn setting up the front straight will both require. You need to make sure that if you have to do a lift, that you do it like along here and not after you've turned in and started to aim down the straightaway. If you're getting to that curb and having to lift or even worse yet, brake, you are ruining your momentum all the way down that straightaway. So if you are going to have to make a lift, then you need to look at a couple of things you're doing. For one, are you turning too early? Because this turn is one that lures you into the turn and makes you want to come in really early. If you ever drove this track in Forza on like stock bloodied cars, then you'll really see what I'm talking about. It will reward you staying out later and then turning a little sharper later and then being wide open throttle from, say, here all the way to the end of the next turn, then being wide open throttle around here, lifting somewhere there, and then going back wide open throttle. The goal is once you go wide open throttle, you want to stay there, even if that means you have to go slower along this rumble strip that we're at now. All right. Now, car placement is not going to be crucial. Ideally, you'd have 2 on the black and white and then 2 on the black and white at exit. But that's not nearly as crucial as making sure that you turn late enough that you're able to stay wide open throttle all the way around this bend and down the next straightaway. If you are consistently going out on this curb, I would say that what's happening is you're turning too early back here somewhere. And you need to turn a little later to make sure that that's not a problem for you anymore. So open up the DRS if you can, sail it down this straightaway. And this turn, it's really, really fun because you can actually overdrive the car here and get rewarded, which is something I don't often say in F1. And this is also a set of corners, by the way, Lewis Hamilton said was some of his one of his favorite sequences in all of F1. So I'm going to brake at around 65 to 75, just circumstances depending. And I'm going to stay braking straight until about in here somewhere, I guess. And what'll happen is you may feel like you want to go in and kind of hug that curb, and you don't. You want to actually make a nice late turn so that if we take a look at our track map, basically what we're going to do is turn nice and late, get to that curb, and then draw a straight line across here. So it's just going to be stay out, turn left, go straight across. If we get in and we can kind of kiss this black and white curb, that's good. And if you kiss that black and white curb right as the car's momentum wants to carry it back out across this end of the track, then you're doing it well. Now here is a corner that I really like because there's 2 ways you can do it. If you do overdrive your car into this corner, you can do what's called a diamond, which basically, if I take my mouse over here on this corner, and I'm going to be exaggerating to make the point, is you would kind of like go out to the outer edge of the track and then turn really sharply out here and bring it right back in. And what that would do is get the car straighter along the second half of the corner and kind of in a sense that you get to wide open throttle and launch it down to straightaway sooner. Alternatively, you can try to keep it nice and snug to the curb all the way around and try to shave some distance out of it. And this turn is like perfect where it's like, if it was a short turn, I would say keep the distance out of it. If it was a longer turn, I would say carry the speed. But this turn is like perfectly set in the middle of where either one of those ways seem to work about as efficiently. Now, this is probably a little bit wide for even the diamond line because you could probably drive 2 cars side by side between me and the edge of the track. That's probably a little extreme, but this is the idea. You would get out to the middle a little bit, and then right about middle of the corner, which you'll just have to kind of gain a feel for, you may have to brake, you may lift. You may notice here I'm doing nothing with the pedals, which is very rare. Normally I would advise if you're not doing something with the gas and brake, you're doing something wrong. But in this corner, if there's a moment where you have to like lift and let the car coast for a moment, it's actually okay and probably better to stay off the brake. And then what we're going to do is try to aim to get the car, again, just straight. You know, if we can see over here, we're coming off the corner, and then we'd want to be getting back to wide open throttle and launching it down to straightaway. This is the alternative way where you would kind of stay inside and you'd be a little bit slower and try to wrap the car around the corner. And then coming down the straightaway, I always put 2 tires out here on the curb. And this is a lot like turn 1 that you want to aim to make it wide open throttle. This was being run in a practice program, low fuel, relatively grippy tires. And I was able to take this corner wide open throttle. At the beginning of a race, you are not going to be able to do that. You may have to lift back here. If it's raining, you might even need to brake a little bit. The goal, however, is going to be to leave it in 8th gear, even if we have to lift, and just lift, smoothly turn in. We can put 2 tires on these curbs. Just beware of the track limits. All the curbs here are pretty friendly. Get it on the curb, let the car track out. And I will say, if you're going to end up going wide, go really wide. You see there's like a line out here. Go like way out left of that line and then bring it in later and just lift ever so slightly as you do it. And it seems like the game will let you have that. The goal here, though, as we come out from this corner is, again, stay in 8th gear and try to aim to put like your left side tires just under the edge of this advertising overhang ahead. And what's going to happen is as we go under that overhang, our goal is going to be stay wide open throttle, kiss this curb on the left right here, and then kiss that curb on the right just up there. And kind of like try to draw a little line if we go back to our track map and draw a little line right between those two. It is actually pretty important that you be very fast, wide open throttle, and on this curb. If you are out here, you're going to have to lift way too early and you're going to scrub a lot of speed. So even if you're on strict track limits, you're going to want to make sure you practice nailing this curb with your car. And as you come around the second left-hand bend of this complex, this is where you'll start lifting. You should not be braking, however, around this corner or braking to set up this corner. This should just be a lift off the throttle to make this work. Now, where you will need to brake is as you come off this curb and you're aiming at the next right-hand curb. We're not going to try to do a late, wide entry or anything. We're just going to try to get to this current corner as fast as we can. So, so I'm in a nice straight line and I'm braking pretty hard. I'm going to get down to about 5th gear and I'm going to have to kind of wrap it around this corner for a moment longer than you may think. And it's also very possible and just fine if you have your right side tires on this curb, and even if you put your right side tires over here on this green. Those little bumps are more or less just there for looks. It seems like you can drive on them just fine. Just beware of the issues. Now, there's a DRS sign, very hard to see in the picture, but it's easier to see, in my opinion, in the game. Once you can see it, you can start picking it back up to wide open throttle and just let the car take a nice flow right around that bend, down the back straightaway, into the last complex of corners. Now, this is a pretty short strip of curbs. And right as I get to that, I'm going to start braking. And then right as I get to the 50, or just as that curb ends, I'm going to turn right. And you're going to carry a lot more speed around this corner than you think you can. This is going to be, I would say, a 6-gear corner for pretty much everybody. It's a very friendly curb, and when you get to it, don't be tempted to try to straighten the car up, because this corner starts to feel like a 90-degree bend and it isn't. Look at the track map. You see, this corner continues on for a while, and what will happen is if you let go of it too soon, your car is going to want to move the straightaway out here. And there's plenty of paved runoff to catch you. But if you consistently find yourself going wide on the exit of this turn, I would say you probably don't need to work on your entry or anything like that. What you probably need to work on is keeping that right hand turning around this curb longer. And basically your end goal is to have the car right where I've got it now, maybe 2 on that black and white curb. And then you're setting the car up. Now, pit lane here is a really bizarre one to hit. Just to note that, practice it, and I'm dead serious, practice going on pit road in practice. This pit road is very bizarre, in my opinion. It lures you into going in a lot faster. But we will move track right, and it's really easy to lose your brake marker, but there's a lot of brake markers to use. It's just that, you crest the hill and there they are. One is use the 100 sign. Another is there's a white line going across the track. Another one is that as you're driving, if you're paying attention to the topography, you can start to notice the crest of the hill. Another thing is the beginning of the curb. And I use all of these. And I'm going to start braking somewhere around this 100. If I'm feeling feisty on some soft tires, I might take it a little deeper, like qualifying, for instance. As the curb ends, I start a turn, and a lot like in Sector 1, just black and white curbs are friendly, red curbs are not. Let the car track about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway across the track. Turn in, black and white curbs are good, red curbs are not. And a lot like that left-hander I talked about going on to the straightaway, which is setting up Sector 2. I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. This is a spot where if you have to make a lift, you want to do it along here and not after you make this right-hand turn. And I also notice when I'm racing against somebody online, a lot of people turn in way too early and they end up on the curb and shot out on. There's a lot of excess over here. They end up out there. They end up hitting this curb and crashing. And it could all be avoided if they would just realize, look how long this straightaway is, basically. This is not like one continuous turn. There's almost like a little straightaway here going to the last turn. Look at the track map and notice that. and then let the car stay out for a moment. Now, what may happen, you notice I'm nearly wide open throttle, but I might have to lift a little bit along here because, much like that little left-hander I spent a lot of time going over earlier, car placement is not as critical going around this last turn as being from where I'm at now until I get to, I guess it would be turn 3. I should be wide open throttle all the way. If I'm lifting, or even worse yet, braking from here out, actually I would say if I go back to the map, back it up a little bit from about there out, then I did something wrong. You need to make sure that lift is early so that when you go wide open throttle, you stay that way and you're not lifting to make sure you don't go over the track. You're not lifting and bouncing this curb or anything. You want to just make a wide open throttle, sling it around this last turn. And that's the trick to Silverstone. Hope this will help you guys further your enjoyment of this lovely track.
You're dropping a second a lap to the car behind, 1 second.